This is a special interview with Katina Magazine. I'm Lauren Collister. I'm on the editorial board for the Open Knowledge section, and I'm joined here by Lynda. So, Lynda, would you take a moment and introduce yourself and let us know your position and tell us a little bit about your work with the Data Rescue Project?
Great, yes. My name is Lynda Kellam. I'm currently at the University of Pennsylvania as the Snyder Grenadier Director of Research Data and Digital Scholarship. But today I'm representing the Data Rescue Project, which is, I'm a volunteer, but one of the organizers for the project, and I've been working on it since February with a team of volunteers, and we very excited to come and talk with you about what we've been doing.
Yeah, thank you. We're really glad that you were able to join us. So, the Katina editorial team got really interested in this topic. I think most of us have been following it very closely since the start of 2025. But we noticed that there was a New Yorker article that came out that was really quite in depth and went into a lot of the folks that are participating in this work and the skills and contributions that they make. And we'll put a link to that article as well as the Data Rescue Project's website in the show notes for folks to read to get some more details. But for this interview, since it's for Katina and its audience of library folks, I'd really like to dive into the skills that librarians are using to do this work and how they can develop and gain those skills. So, if with that in mind, I'd really love if you could tell us, for any listeners who are unfamiliar with the project, just a quick overview of the Data Rescue Project, what you're doing, and who is contributing to it.
Yeah, great. So Data Rescue Project is a grassroots volunteer effort to rescue data and raise awareness of the importance of government data. Primarily, we are working in federal data, but there's data collected at all levels of government. It emerged out of efforts of three data librarianship organizations, iAssist, RDAP, and Data Curation Network. All three of these are closely intertwined. We have a lot of overlapping memberships, but have very different focuses and interests. And it also expanded beyond that because we all have connections with people who are librarians or not librarians in other communities who are interested in government data. So, for example, we have partners like PEDP, which is the Public Environmental Data Partners. PEGI Project is one of our partners, so Preserving Electronic Government Information. I'm on the steering committee for PEGI Project. And then we've also, through this process, met other partners. Sucho has been a great example of that, and I can talk more about them later, but that's the Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online. So it's a group that came out of the Ukrainian war, or in response to the Ukrainian war. And then Safeguarding Research and Culture. So those are just a few of the groups that we work with beyond the kind of the larger like Internet Archive and Endotherm Web Archive. So it's really, it was meant to be a way to harness the grassroots energy of people who wanted to do something, but what weren't sure how to, or how to get started, or maybe weren't aware of the big efforts that were already existing to preserve electronic government information and preserve government data. So that's really where it came out of, and who was contributing to it. It's a wide range of people, librarians, but we also have researchers and tech people who are there to do web scraping and have a lot of tech skills. And then we, in addition to amplifying each other's efforts, our goal is to try to rescue as much data as we can, primarily focusing on social data because there's another group the PEDP is doing environmental data. So that's in a nutshell who we are and what we do.
Thank you for that. So just to give listeners an idea of what it's like to do this work, I wonder if you could share a particular project or a rescue effort that you worked on or interacted with somehow, maybe something you're particularly proud of, and what needed to be done, and what was that work like?
So my direct work, the work that I've mostly been doing, is more communications based and interfacing and answering emails. But one of the things we created at the beginning was a spreadsheet to help as we go through the workflows of data rescue to make sure that people were able to collect the metadata that we need to be able to make things preservable for the long run. So that has led to a lot of things that we're really proud of, right? We've worked with partners to find a preservation home for our IMLS data. And that was one of the early things that we made sure to get because of the fact that we're librarians. So every time we kind of finish an agency or are able to get a lot of the data from an agency, we consider it definitely a win. I think for me, the thing I'm most proud of has been the Data Rescue Project Tracker, which is a catalog of data rescue efforts beyond just ours. So it's really meant to be a tool where people can go look for a data set, see who's captured it, and then where it's been backed up. And that is not just Data Rescue Project volunteers. That includes PEDP, that includes ICPSR. I'm really proud of that tracker. I think that it has a lot of potential for helping people find things and know where things are backed up. And we are always looking for people to add metadata to that if they're interested in contributing or if they're backing up something of their own.
Great. Yeah, we'll get to some ways that our listeners could maybe contribute or participate later on in this conversation, I think. But I wanted to ask about, so you mentioned one of your partners was from Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that starts to answer my next question, but I would love to get, your perspective on whether this data rescue situation, right now it seems like a lot of eyes are focused on the United States. But I wonder if there are other international efforts like this. Does it happen with administration transitions elsewhere? And, what does this look like globally? Or do you have participants working on United States data from around the world, for example?
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, some of our closest partners are actually in Germany. So Sucho has been a great partner, and that person who works with us is actually based in Germany, and Sucho was a widely popular, effort to back up cultural heritage digital objects and websites, and so he's been great in helping us set up our infrastructure, so set up our communications channels, our websites, our newsletter, all of that kind of thing. And he had assistance from his institution that he worked for to do that. So that was the starting point for kind of an international relationship. We also, I have to say, it was interesting that we had more attention in the French press from the beginning than we did in the American press. So the first few articles were French articles. One was in Le Monde in mid-February, which was pretty surprising to see that interest. And so that garnered a lot of interest from people who are in Europe, especially. And we have a close Safeguarding Research and Culture. The primary lead for that is based in Germany. And they've been we can handle the smaller data sets, but if it's something that's going to require large scale scraping, we can turn to him and his group to focus on that kind of work. So it's a lot of support coming from a lot of different places, even Canadian. There's been a Canadian data rescue event as well. So yeah, and it's a lot. I think to answer the question about whether we see this in other places, not to this scale necessarily, but one of the things that we are hoping to do with our group, and we've also had conversations with people in other countries about this, is making sure that we can create some kind of model for people who do experience this kind of situation. And it doesn't have to just be in relation to presidential administrative changes or regime change or anything like that, a political situation. It also could be in response to disasters or other kinds of events that damage the infrastructure of a country. So helping people think through how to save data, a rapid response approach to saving data in any kind of situation is kind of the direction that we've been taking. So in that sense, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who might be interested in looking over to kind of follow how you're doing it in case it happens in their country, and what lessons they can learn from us in the same way that we learn lessons from Sucho, and learn as well lessons. Be it would be bad to not mention this, but learn lessons from the groups in 2017 that were doing this, and they had their own challenges that they faced. And so we've been able to, the data rescue tracker exists because we learned from them from 2017.
Yeah, that was going to be a question I just thought of as you were talking about the past efforts and all the involvement. There was a data rescue effort in 2017, I recall, and it
Mm-hmm.
um, it really got some attention at that point. So, what is the relationship between the current work that you're doing and that group of people or that effort in 2017? Is it some of the same people, same infrastructure? How are you building on the past work?
Yeah. So the a lot of the people, so that was called Data Refuge, was the primary kind of lead group that time, and that group doesn't really exist anymore. A lot of those people went on to different careers or different positions, and so um, the infrastructure wasn't quite there for us to be able to kind of just pick it up and put it into what we're dealing with now. Plus, there was a different situation. They were mostly focused on environmental data, and this time it's really what we're mostly concerned about on our side for data rescue project has been social data. So things like the Department of Education and IMLS, all of those. And that wasn't the focus in 2017. But what had pre-existed even then was the end-of-term web archive efforts, because there's a recognition that presidential websites change with every administration. And then out of 2017, that's where EDGI, which is Environmental Data and Governance Initiative, and PEDP were created, as well as ICPSR's Data Lumos, which is where we archive the data. So all of that's the infrastructure that was kind of created in 2017 that we've been able to use for our efforts, especially in relation to social data. And again, there are a lot of people who have told us that they were active back in 2017, but then we also have a lot of people who weren't part of the 2017 effort. So there has been a little bit of that infrastructure, but it's not. We pay homage to Data Refuge, but we're not the same thing as Data Refuge.
Thank you. So, you mentioned Data Lumos and using open infrastructure tools. I know on your website you've mentioned that there are a lot of freely available or open tools that folks can use to do or to help with this work. So I wonder if you could talk about this question. Is using open infrastructure essential to your mission? How does it contribute to or facilitate this work? Or are you really tool agnostic and whatever gets the job done?
Definitely whatever gets the job done, for sure. I mean, one of the things that was attractive about Data Lumos was that it would give us a place where we knew we could put things. It's a crowdsourced repository for data, for government data. It was a place where we knew we could put things and had a preservation mission. So for us, it's really been open infrastructure is certainly an important thing for our ability to do the work, and we use a lot of open tools. But for us, it's really trying to figure out what can we access and what can our people use, and what makes the most sense. Our big thing, kind of related to this, is that to avoid monetization as much as possible, avoid commercialization of the data. It is in the public domain. Government data is completely in the public domain unless it's restricted for some reason. And there have been people do put added value and create things that can be monetized, but just this access point, we wanted to make sure that that's free and open for people to be able to access it. And certainly we've been able to do that through, again, Data Lumos, and then also through Internet Archive. We put a lot of things, or nominated a lot of links to the Wayback Machine, or to End of Term Web Archive as well. So I would say open infrastructure is critical. In our case, we are trying to use whatever we can and whatever we can spin up quickly without money, because until recently, we weren't taking donations. We are just volunteers. So it's been important to have that kind of open infrastructure available to us.
Sense, thank you. So, kind of getting back to the librarian and archivist involvement in this work. So you mentioned that librarians and archivists play a key role in doing this work, but you have volunteers of all walks of life, all kinds of professions helping out. So I wonder if you could tell us more about the role that librarians and archivists play in doing this work and how they are using their unique skill sets related to the profession to help them along the way.
Certainly. I mean, a lot of us who started out doing this in this project were data librarians. And so one of the first things we did was drew on the curation workflows that have been created by Data Curation Network, and MIT also created one specific to government data. So we really wanted to amplify those workflows so that people knew what was involved in backing up and curating and backing up and preserving for the long-term data in particular, which has different needs from a website. And we wanted to make that clear. I think that was, while web crawling is certainly something we support and do, and it's something that has to be done in certain cases, especially for a large website. We also recognize that web crawled websites are not a long-term preservation. That's not long-term preservation. We really want to make sure that they can be the data, the documentation, the metadata, all of that can be preserved with an organization that actually has data in mind, and that's why we wanted to make sure it got with Data Lumos. So all of those required kind of an understanding of data as a unique thing, and drew on the data librarians community's skill sets for sure. And metadata has been a big part of that, both for data rescues and for the tracker. Because as we were creating the tracker, we were thinking through the kinds of metadata someone would need in order to be able to access the data and use it efficiently. So those two skill sets are especially important. We've also had a lot of people with interest in the more technical side of things. So if they have technical skills, if they can do web scraping, those kinds of things, we've been putting them to use as possible. Or they've been just doing things for us. Somebody went and grabbed a whole bunch of data yesterday and let us know, and I was like, because it had been a bit of a roadblock on something we were working on. The other thing, though, is we can find a task for anybody. And one of the things that I have been trying to push, and our group has been pushing, is this idea of a data use story. So making sure that people are telling how they're using the data, why it's important. And I think librarians would be really helpful in having those connections to help us get more stories out there. I talked to someone today who they asked me, it was a journalist who asked me what was missing from the stories, like what the media is talking about with this. And I think one of the things that's kind of missing is really that true understanding of what the impact will be if we lose this data for the long term. That it's not just about researchers, it's not just about universities, that the data that we use to ask questions has an impact on the real people, on services that we provide in the community. And being able to kind of connect the dots from one of those to the next is really important, and something that I think librarians could help do for their own communities, and be the ambassadors for government data in their communities.
Wonderful. Do you have a data use story that really resonates with you or that other people seem to think is really powerful?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it depends on the community you're in. So we have two that we've put up on our website so far. One is on iPads and the importance of iPads for a person who was talking about working with high school students and using iPads to help them make the decision of where they're going to go to college. Another one talks about the youth risk behavior system, which is a survey, large-scale survey that looks at youth risk behaviors, so health risks and other kinds of risk behaviors, and the impact that changing variables that relate to gender would have on services provided to people who are transgender. And so that one in particular, I think it was did a really good job of connecting the dots down to services that are actually provided by a community organization. We have some others that we are going to put out there, but we've had so many developments going that it's been hard to get them up. But if people are interested in have ideas for that, we would love to collect them, but they are also welcome to just talk about them in their own communities. They don't have to go through us to do that.
Your last question made me think of another question, which is, are any of these, you're sort of, it sounds like you're capturing a snapshot of the data. Are there those that are still being updated or changed in some way? Do you have to go back and re-get them again? And what is the process of that like? Is that all,
Yeah.
ongoing work, or, is it, do you ever consider something done in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of this will be ongoing, we think. We are at this point, our goal was to get the data and then figure out kind of what the lay of the land will be after that. And it may take a little while, a few months out to be able to fully understand kind of what has happened, to be honest, to take a reckoning. We have people who ask us what the percentage of things we think are completely down. And I don't think it's that great of percentage of data that's gone. I think at least in the social data that we're looking at, it's more that the people the federal workers who supported that data, the data stewards are gone. And so the concern is if the people who are employed to be the experts in that data are no longer there, who is going to take care of that data? That's a harder question to know about. It's harder to answer your question because of that question, right? We aren't going to know. We'll have to do some matching of data sets to see, have they been updated, have they been altered? But that's going to be a different process that will need to take place after we're sure that the administration is done with the reorganizations. Because again, a lot of the data, it's about more of the reorganization or the dismantling of the agency itself than it is about the data necessarily being taken down directly.
Interesting. Can you, I wonder if you have an example of this sort of dismantling or reorganization of an agency and how it impacted the data as a way to
Yes.
illustrate?
So I think IMLS is an example. So the Institute of Museum and Library Services, where a lot of the people were, a large number of the people were let go there. It's a situation where we have that data, and we've had that data for a while, but we don't know if anybody is going to be in charge of that data going forward. National Center for Education Statistics is the same way, where a large number of those people, of the employees of the center, were fired. It isn't clear what's going to happen with that data going forward. And we don't have the ability to we don't know what's going on behind the scenes at that particular agency. So from our perspective, it's better to be safe and get the data than to end up in a situation like we did with USAID, where the agency was dismantled, and we do think there has been data loss because of that agency going away. Now, all of that being said, there are definitely situations where the data is there somewhere backed up. But for me, the important thing is access. And if my users can't access the data, then the data isn't, it's not going to be fulfilling the use that what it's meant to be there for. So for us, even though we hope that people still have the data somewhere and are still backing it up and still adding to it, if the agency isn't in existence or the websites have been taken down, we definitely will want to be able to still give people access to that data. The challenge going in some of these data sources too is that if there's no one there to steward the data, to really help with stewarding the data, it isn't clear if something breaks on the back end, if something deprecates, right, there's no one there to help a user. And so making sure that we have access to it somehow has really been the major mission for what we're doing. So I think there's a lot of questions that we have about, reconciling knowing kind of what has actually been taken down. Those kind of questions we won't know for months, really, or be able to take a reckoning on those things for months, in my opinion.
It sounds like there's going to be a future project to go back and look at everything that folks have gathered up and saved and, sort of both look back at what we've got and look forward at, how can we, you know, uh, what kind of work do we need to keep doing
Yeah.
to make sure this remains available?
Yeah, and that's going to be a lot of. In our case, we work closely with ICPSR, and so um, providing support, volunteer support for ICPSR has been a big part of our mission as well. And one of the ways we've been doing that is helping them. They've created a tool where people can help remediate the data from some of the things they rescued, remediate the metadata from some of the things that they rescued, and um, that effort is really important because they don't have, they have a large staff, but they don't have enough. Everybody there has a job. They're not focused on curating rescue data. And so I think there will be space for volunteers even, months from now, just to help think of through ways that we can help ICPSR or with their metadata, or that we can go back and look at the data we collected and updated in some way. So yeah, there's definitely things that we're going to have to do to clean up what's been done later on.
Sounds like a big, big project. So, for those listeners who are listening to this interview and want to get involved or want to support the project, how can they get involved? Where should they go? And what are some of the things that need to be done now? And how they can they find out about maybe some of these future projects that you have in mind?
Great. Yeah. So one of the things is definitely subscribe to our website, which is where our newsletter goes out. And we put out a post twice a week typically, so it's not a huge number of posts. And you can get emails directly to you. You can follow us on Blue Sky and learn more there. That's definitely where you can go if you're for more of the rapid response kind of things. We'll put there. On our FAQ on our website, which is datarescueproject.org, we have information on getting more heavily involved. So if you want to become a volunteer, there's a volunteer form, and we'll reach out to you and add you to our communication channel, which is called Mattermost. It's like a Slack channel or Slack-like platform. And that's where we do a lot of the actual data rescue work and coordinating. And going into the future, as we start to hopefully slow down in this period, we can use Mattermost to coordinate the other kinds of things that we will need to be helping with the metadata cleanup and comparison of data sets and things like that. Hopefully we'll be able to work through there. You can also always create a data rescue event. We don't officially organize those for people, but we have resources that one of our steering committee members created that you can use for your own data rescue event. And we're happy, if you join Mattermost, we have a channel dedicated to data rescue events. We are happy to advise on doing one and suggest certain things, certain places to look for data to rescue. One of the things we've started pushing people or encouraging people to look at is state level data. It's definitely not something that we can coordinate on in our group. So if they are interested or concerned about that, then we can encourage them to take a look at that, create a group and do a rescue if they want. We also, again, the stories are another place if somebody wants to work on trying to gather community stories. We would love to take those and amplify those in any way we can. We are taking donations now. We've become a member of Open Collective Europe, which gives us a 501c3 status. So we have and it's really nice. People have been able to give us, small amounts of money, and that helps us to cover our communications channels. So that's no longer our technology person's institution is no longer covering which is very nice. And then finally is letting other people know why government data matters. Talking to your family or friends and telling them about what's happening and why this matters on a personal level to them, I think is really beyond, just service for other people, how it matters to you, and talking about that and amplifying that, I think is a really important thing to do.
Wow, those are a lot of ways to find out more and get
Yeah.
involved. So there's got to be something for everybody listening in
Yes.
that in this environment. So thank you for sharing all of that. I want to end with a question that I like to ask at the end of every interview. Is there something that you wish you had been asked about today, or a topic that you'd like to share more information on that you didn't get a chance to?
I do want to emphasize, I guess, just that we are volunteers and that people are working, uh, on weekends and evenings to do this. A lot of people are working after work. This is nobody's job. And so there may be places where we don't do, like, there may be places where things could be improved, and I encourage people to reach out to us and let us know if they see incorrect metadata in our tracker, or if they see something that could use some improvement, just to get in touch with us, because we know that is volunteering and that's helping us, right? And so I encourage people to let us know if they see something that needs to be improved in some ways, and we are definitely willing to do that. And we love feedback from people, so just follow us on Blue Sky, and we can have that conversation.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that listeners, you found something to engage with, whether it's telling a data story, giving some feedback on metadata, following along, or contributing your skills and efforts to this work. And Lynda, thank you so much for talking with us today. If folks have follow-up questions or want to send any feedback, how can they get in touch with you or the project?
Best way is through datarescueproject.org. We have an email on there that they can email us at,
Perfect.
and they can see all of our posts.
Perfect. So head on over to datarescueproject.org to learn more and to communicate with the team if you'd like to do that. And once again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.